Library Lion. One day, a lion came to the library. He walked right past the front desk and disappeared between the bookshelves. Mr. Moby ran down the hall to the head of the librarian office. "Mrs. Merriweather," he shouted. "No running," said Miss Merriweather, without looking up. "But you're a lion," said Mr. Bigby. "In the library. Is he breaking any rules?" asking Miss Merriweather. She was very particular about law breaking. "Well, no," said Mr. Bigby. "Not really. Then leave him be." The lion wandered around the library. He sniffed the carlin deck. He rubbed his head against a new book collection. Then he padded about to the story corner and went to sleep. No one knew what to do. There wasn't any rules about lion in the library. It was soon story time. There weren't any rules about lions at story time either. The story lady seemed a little nervous, but she read up the title of the book first in the strong, clear voice. The lion looked up. The story lady kept on reading. The lion stayed for the next story, and the story after that she waited for another story, but the children began to walk away. "Story is over," the little girl told him. Lion looked at the children. She looked at the story lady. He looked at the closed books. Then he roared very loudly. "Roar!" Miss Merriweather came marching out of the office. "Who is making that noise?" she demanded. "It's the lion," said Miss Bucky. Miss Merriweather marched over to the lion. "If you can't be quiet, then you have to leave," she said in stern voice. "Those are the rules." The lion kept roaring. "You sound that." The little girl tugged on Miss Merriweather's dress. "If you promise to be quiet, can he come back for story time tomorrow?" she asked. The lion stopped roaring. He looked at Miss Merriweather. Miss Merriweather looked back. Then he said, "Yes, a nice, quiet lion will certainly be along to come back for story time tomorrow." "Hooray!" cried the children. The next day, the lion came back. "Early," said Miss Merriweather. "Story time isn't until 3 o'clock." The lion did not move. "Very well," said Miss Merriweather. "You might as well make yourself useful." She sent him thus to the encyclopedias until story time. The next day, the lion arrived early again. This time, Miss Merriweather asked him to leak the envelope for the office and note. Soon the lion started job without being asked. He dusted the encyclopedias, he licked the envelope, he let small children stand on his back to read the books on the highest shelf. Then she crawled into the story corner to wait for story time to begin. At first, people in the library was nervous about the lion, but soon they were used to having him there. In fact, he seemed very well suited to the library. His big feet were quiet on the library floor. He made a comfy breakfast for the children at story time, and he never roared anymore. They're in the library anymore. What a helpful lion, people thought. They patted his soft head and he walked by. How did he ever by himself? Mr. Big Bucky closed her heart that they had always imagined it fine before. No lion or need lions it through could not understand rules. They did not belong in the library. One day, after he had dusted all the envelopes and licked all the envelopes and helped all the small children, the lion passed down the hall Miss Merryweather office to see what else was had to do. There was still a while until story time. "Hello, Ryan," said Miss Merryweather. "I have something you can do. You can take a book back to the front desk for me. Let me just get it down and from the shelf." Miss Merryweather stepped onto the stool. The book was just out of the reach. Miss Merryweather stood on her toes. She straightened the finger. "Almost there," she said. Then Miss Merryweather stretched a little too far. "Ouch!" said Miss Merryweather softly. She did not get up. "Mr. Bigby!" she called after a minute. "Mr. Bigby!" But Mr. Bigby was at the front desk. She could not hear the calling. "Lion," said Miss Merryweather, "please go and get Mr. Bigby." The lion ran down the hall. "No running," Miss Merryweather called after him. He put his big paw onto the front desk and looked at Bigby. "Go away, Lion," said Mr. Bigby. "I'm so busy." The lion went. He pointed his nose down the hall toward the Miss Merryweather office. Mr. Bigby ignored him. Finally, the lion did the only thing he could think to do. He looked Mr. Bigby straight in the eye. Then he opened his mouth very wide, and he roared the loudest roar he had ever heard in his life. "Roar!" Mr. Bigby gasped. "You're not being quiet," he said to the lion. "You're breaking the rules." Mr. Bigby ran the hall as fast as he could. The lion did not follow him. He had broken the rules. He knew what that meant. He hung his hat and walked toward the door. Mr. Bigby did not notice. "Miss Merryweather," he cried. "Mr. Merryweather, the lion has freaked the rules. The lion has freaked the rules." He burst into Miss Merryweather's office. She was not in the chair. "Miss Merryweather's?" he asked. "Sometimes," said Mr. Merryweather from the floor to the desk. "There is a good reason to break the rules, even in diary. Now please go and call a doctor. I think I broke my arm." Mr. Bigby ran to the doctor. "No running!" Mrs. Merryweather called after him. The next day, things were back to normal almost. Miss Merryweather left arm in the ceiling. "The doctor had told us not to work too hard. I will have my lion to help me." Miss Merryweather drew, but the lion did not come to the library that morning. At 3 o'clock, Miss Merryweather walked over to the story corner. The story lady was starting to read. The lion was not there. People in the library kept looking up from their books and computers, hoping that they see the familiar furry face. But the lion did not come that day. The lion did not come the next day either, or the day after that. One evening, Mr. Bigby stopped at Miss Merryweather's office as he living delightedly. "Can I go to anything for you before I go, Miss Merryweather?" he asked her. "No, thank you," said Miss Merryweather. She was looking out of the door window. Her voice was very quiet, even for the library. Mr. Bigby frowned as he walked away. He drew there hopefully something he could do for Miss Merriweather. Mr. Bigby left irreverently, but he did not go home. He looked around the nearby street. He looked under cars. He looked behind bush. He looked in the back garden and rubbish bins and up trees. Finally, he ended up back into the valley. The lion was sitting outside, standing under the glass doors. "Hello, Ryan," said Mr. Bigby. The lion did turn around. "I do you might like to know," said Mr. Bigby. "That there was a new rule at the library, no rolling around unless you have a very good lesson. Say, if you're trying to help a friend who's been hurt, for example." The lion twitched. He turned around, but Mr. Bigby was already walking away. The next day, Mr. Bigby went down to the hall to his Miss Big Merriweather office. "What is it, Mr. Bigby?" asked Miss Merriweather in her new sad, quiet voice. "I do you might like to know," said Mr. Bigby to the lion in the library. Mr. Merriweather jumped out from the chair and ran down the hall. Mr. Bigby smiled. "No running," he corrected her. Miss Merriweather didn't listen. Sometimes there was a good lesson to break the rule, even in the library. The end. Bye-bye. See you next time.